Welcome to the Intentionists podcast, where we explore the interplay between intuition, spiritual health, and everything in between. I'm your host, Aimee Schreiber.
And I'm Hilary Zwallen. Our intention is to create a dialogue that inspires you to consciously forge your path with curiosity and compassion for life and its mysteries. Hello, fellow Intentionists, and welcome today to our episode on the winter solstice and living in alignment with the seasons. Aimee, it's so fun to be back together with you again. We've been doing so many great interviews these last few weeks. It's been fun, but I'm happy to be back with my bestie.
Yes, me too.
So how crazy and counter nature is it that we have this super insane holiday season that is all about commerce and super sales and party after party after party right now, when all we really want to do is curl up with a book and a cup of soup and go to sleep.
It's very crazy.
Yes, I found that as I've come more in contact with nature and I've really tried to align with not only my own menstrual cycle, but the cycle of the earth in terms of the food that I eat and really more like the pace of my life, that I've had the biggest visceral reaction to the holiday season. Like it just feels so counterintuitive to be doing everything that we're doing in the month of December right now.
Yeah, we have moved in officially to this cold and flu season. I'm sick right now. I think you're sick right now. Everyone I know is sick right now. And this is our body's way of telling us, especially if we live in these cold climates, that we have a need to warm and rest and relax under lots of blankets this time of year instead of participate in this frenzied, like constant outward activity. And so that is why we're here today, So if we aren't intentional about giving ourselves the downtime we need this time of year, our bodies will take it however they can.
Yes.
But it does not have to be this way. So today we're going to discuss the energetic qualities of the winter season, which is marked by the winter solstice this coming Friday, December 21st.
Yes, but if you are in a colder climate, it has felt like winter for probably 2 months already, right? Like If you're in Minnesota or Utah, I feel like it's been freezing cold. I've been back and forth there. It's like in early November, I was like, this place is freezing.
Yeah, there's still fall leaves here in California.
Yeah, California, this is like the best month of the year in California.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, so then we're going to share some practices to nourish and embrace the stillness and darkness and happiness of this time of year. But first, we're going to share a little history of gift giving and winter solstice traditions around the globe.
Yes.
So start us off, Hilary.
Oh yes, please, thank you. I'm ready to do it because this year I think because my kids are in that age where they're a little bit older now and they're asking for like the really expensive presents that I've just been like, this is getting ridiculous. And I feel like my kids, we don't deprive them of much. So I feel like they already have just tons of things. And I'm like, what else do we need? So anyway, this whole idea of gift giving is an old one, and it has become associated with Christmas really more recently, like in the last 150 years. So it's a relic of a pagan custom around the winter solstice. And it was celebrated in ancient Rome with gift giving during Saturnalia, the Saturnalia holiday, which took place in the same month. And as we know with the Roman Empire and how everything changed during that period as Christianity became increasingly more widespread in Rome, the custom of gift giving continued. And around the year 336 AD, the date of December 25th appears to have become established as the date of Jesus's birth. And I'm assuming that this was around the time of the Council of Nicaea when Constantine adopted the Christian religion. And then the tradition at that point, from being the Saturnalia, coming from there, it was kind of reinterpreted as the story tied to the biblical magi giving gifts to the baby Jesus, which we celebrate. If you were Christian, you would celebrate that now to this day. But then there's this whole Santa Claus character, right?
Yeah.
And so I was just digging around on the internet and I'm like, I remember as a kid growing up being Mormon and having it be like, this is about the birth of Christ, but then like Santa's coming tonight. So it's like,
They're the same person. No.
Yeah, I never understood, like, who is this great friendly grandpa, master of elves, gift guy and the baby Jesus, like, what do they have to do with each other? And I think they don't really have much to do with each other, as we've discovered. So Santa Claus is based on the historical figure of St. Nicholas, which was a 4th century Greek bishop who was known to be very famous for his generous gifts to the poor. But then we also have, in other cultures, the Germanic god of Odin, who was associated with the pagan midwinter event of Yule, which happens around the same time of year, right?
Right.
And so it's interesting how these archetypal gods end up finding their way into modern culture, and even when there is a Christian based, and that it comes from this kind of a mishmash of the St. Nicholas story of the Greeks, the Germanic god Odin, Father Christmas, which was, I believe, comes from the Netherlands, and the story of good King Wenceslas, who was a Christmas gift giving. It was all about gift giving to superiors, and he was the person that was very popular, and during, like, I guess, as the custom spread to the United States around the 19th century, this kind of coincided with the desire of some of the elites to reduce the rowdiness of Christmas celebrations, where some places were tied to begging. So they would go around and wassail. So you've heard the song, like, here we come a wassailing, right? So
Mm-hmm.
they created some gift giving things so that people would not be out corrupting other people in the streets. So
Yeah, I was looking up the Saturnalia festival. It looked like a fun one. Like, it was saying that it was the very favorite time, and it was full of like fun and debauchery and festivities. It kind of sounded like Mardi Gras a little bit, but it
oh
was it was also like a very generous time where, like, sometimes the masters would serve the slaves, and then, like, I think that kind of carried through, and that's what, like, the Wenceslas came in to set straight or whatever.
right. And then when it really started to become popular in terms of commerce and just being so widespread where everyone is getting gifts for each other, was with the 1823 poem The Night Before Christmas came out. And then in 1843, Charles Dickens wrote a novel called A Christmas Carol. And
Mm.
so things changed to, like, by the 19th century, Christmas Eve became a very important time to give. In Western culture, oftentimes people will give one gift on Christmas Eve and then open your presents on Christmas morning. So
Do you
that
guys
is
do
kind of
that?
the, we do. We always let our kids open like one present from us, the
Mhm.
night before, and then, Santa comes in the morning. So anyway, so that is the very, very abridged history, mishmashy history of this Christmas season and why we have gifts and everything.
Have you read the book? I'm dying to read it. It's all about how Christmas became this huge commercial holiday in the United States. And it's like all about Coca-Cola and just kind of like the rise of insane, like, marketing insanity. It looks super interesting. I don't remember what it's called though. Have you heard of this?
No, no, it sounds really interesting.
Yeah,
Like,
well,
maybe we should have read that before we did this episode. I don't
no, we'll
know.
read it, and next year Christmas
Next
episode,
year.
we'll
That's
learn
right.
about how we're being manipulated. But
So will you
anyways.
tell us about, yeah, exactly. Will you tell us about the other solstice traditions around the globe?
Yes, you already mentioned a few, and the main characteristic of all of these have to do with light and the sun, because winter's the dark time of year, at least in the northern hemisphere. Like, we have
Mhm.
Christmas, which celebrates the newborn son, S-O-N, Jesus. And then the pagan
Mhm.
traditions celebrate the newborn son, S-U-N. And then Hanukkah is a festival of lights. There's lots of light festivals going on this time of year. And
Hmm.
just for people who don't know, the winter solstice is the shortest day and longest night of the year. So this marks the tipping point where the days are going to start getting longer. So it's like a big celebration because the worst is over, basically. Around the world, Dongji, I think, that's the Chinese midwinter celebration. So they gather with their family and they make these really delicious looking rice balls that I was getting really hungry looking at these pictures of this festival. And then Yule, as you said, a lot of the traditions of Yule, like the Yule log, Christmas trees, and wreaths, they can be traced back there. And then in Iran, they celebrate the victory of the sun god over darkness on the winter solstice. And they do that by gathering with family and feasting and reading poetry. I thought that was
Hmm.
cool. And then Native American tribes, actually tribes all over the world, if usually are very earth centric and sun centric. So there's usually a celebration on the solstices, but in particular, the tribes in New Mexico and Arizona, like the Hopi and the Zuni, celebrate this return of the sun with lots of fires and ceremonial dancing. And then in Japan, they also light bonfires, but they have this great tradition that I would like to start doing where they soak in a hot citrus scented bath.
Oh, that sounds amazing
And
right
it's like
now.
as a thing, like to ward off sickness. And yeah, it sounded very heavenly.
That
And
sounds
then,
like what I'm going to do after we're done recording. Go
right,
get myself a cup of lemon tea and get in a hot citrus bath. Oh, I love that idea.
exactly. And then there's St. Lucia's Day too, which is also this time. And it's not in particular about the solstice, but it's like it's another light centric celebration. It's where the Christian martyr Saint Lucia brought food to some imprisoned Christians and wore candles on her head. So that's when you see the girls in the white dresses with the candles wreaths around their head. That's Saint Lucia's Day.
Hmm. All these things are making more sense.
That is
So,
Scandinavian. Yes.
yes. So, now we've given some historical context, do we want to talk about identifying and embracing our times of fallow? Because this is really the season of fallow, right? This is the time when everything dies. And at least in the Northern Hemisphere, everything dies.
Yes. Tell us about it.
So, as we get in touch with our cyclic nature, and for those of you guys who are just joining us for the first time, check out episode 37 and 38, where we interview the author, Lisa Lister. I've started to really notice these times of death or downtime as really important periods, and no pun intended, because she talks all about our menstrual cycles, but they really are. I mean, I see these, the death periods that we have every month, if you're a woman and you menstruate, or if you follow the moon cycle and you want to talk about the time of the waning moon and moving into the dark moon, and how we're in a society, our Western culture, where it's so much produce, 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 and so much of our self-worth is really measured by our output, or what we get done in a day, how many things we tick off of our list. That getting in touch with this idea that we have to die every month. Things like in our cyclic nature, there are things that we have to have those times of fallow. There has to be those down times. There has to be the
Right.
time where we embrace this. As I was researching these times of fallow, I found in the Encyclopedia Britannica, which was making me feel like a fourth grader again.
Yeah.
So it's like, when was the last time I looked into it as Encyclopedia Britannica? Like maybe middle school. I don't know. So anyway, but in dryland farming, this practice has been done since ancient times. And the fallow periods mean that they let they would farm a field, and then there would have to be a time where you let the field just sit bare. And it's not that it's winter, it's that they have to let the ground rest and recultivate its mineral content and allow the worms and the bugs and the things that are in the soil to do what it needs to do. And so in this dryland farming, it was made possible by this fallow system of farming, where they would basically the land is plowed and tilled and then left unseeded during a full growing season. And since the fallow periods of the plot are longer even than the planted periods, they would sometimes then have to go out further and push themselves and their farming to these further limits to go try to find other ways to cultivate and farm. And I really thought of that as a metaphor for our inner emotional and spiritual landscape, that when we allow for certain parts of ourselves to just sit and be, allow them to die, it
Mhm.
really forces us out of our little cultivated farm that is comfortable, that we know how the land works. And it forces us to move into places that are unknown. And that's really, to me, the ultimate metaphor of what the time of fallow is. It's not just to rest and retreat and do nothing. It's really about resting so that we can then see what's going on in our shadow, what's going on in the places where we don't really want to look in the daily because we're so busy, we can't deal with it, right? It's
Mhm.
the stuff that's like, okay, maybe that's telling me something, but I don't want to deal with it right now because I'm too busy. I'm just going to keep medicating myself with, and I'm using that term loosely, with, my devices, with things to do, with my lists, with my building, building, building.
Yeah, that's
So
great. I love that, Hillary.
thank you. I had a little post too when a friend of mine this week sent me a post on Facebook from this woman, and I wanted to, I'm going to just share it because I thought it was so profound. But the woman's name is Venice Wyatt, and we're going to link to her in our Instagram and Facebook. But she talks about our modern culture teaches us avoidance at a max at this time: alcohol, lights, shopping, overworking, overspending, comfort food, and consumerism. And yet, the natural tug to go inwards, as nearly all creatures are doing, is strong. And the weather so bitter that people are left feeling that winter is hard, because for those of us without burning fires and big festive families, it can be lonely and isolating. Whereas in actual fact, winter is kind. She points us in her quiet, soft way toward our inner self, toward this annual time of peace and reflection, embracing the darkness and forgiving, accepting and loving, embracing goodbye the past year. As she quotes, winter takes away the distractions, the buzz, and the presence of us, with the perfect time to rest and withdraw into a womb like love, bringing fire and light into our hearth. And then just around the corner, the new year will begin. And again, like a seed planted deep in the earth, we will all rise with renewed energy once again to dance in the sunlight. I thought that was really beautiful.
Yeah, that is. I like that a lot.
So thank you, Venice Wyatt.
I know it makes so much sense, especially this is coming in at a perfect time right after our discussion with Lisa. There's just such a parallel between like our own bodies and how we have this death time when we bleed. And I actually just started my period today, so I feel like very in tune with the winter and like very in this mindset right now of like just crawling into a cave and not engaging, like not doing anything but sit and listen and whatever else. That time is so necessary. I feel like in a previous time, I would not view this chance for rest as like the great thing that it is. I would be beating myself up about like, oh, I didn't do yoga this morning. I didn't do anything. And like now I'm going to feel bad. Instead, today I'm like celebrating, like, I didn't do anything today. And that's exactly what I should have been doing. So
I think too, sometimes my times of fallow actually look quite left-brained and productive.
uh,
And let me just explain this, because when I do that, I'm giving myself a creative break. And right now I'm specifically trying to birth a novel, and it is so all-consuming that you are thinking about it 24/7, and everything that's happening in your life is potential plot lines or, thoughts that you want to put into the book.
mhm.
And I found that it's really hard for me to channel creatively for long periods of time. I have to give myself permission to say, I'm putting the book down. I'm setting that aside. I'm going to get all the things on my list done that need to be done, get my kids scheduled for whatever they need, and just the things that fall apart when you're in a real creative vortex, which is what
Right.
happens to me. And so sometimes taking a break actually looks like me ticking things off the list, paying bills, cleaning out the closet, getting rid of old stuff. And it also means that I allow myself time to zone out and watch TV at night, or, do something that when I'm working on a creative project, I use those times when my kids are asleep, or just whenever I would have quote unquote downtime to try to create. And that takes a lot of energy. So I
Yeah,
just wanted
that's
to put that out there for our listeners who may be creative and looking at how might they best use these times of fallow and reframing the way that their cycles work.
yeah.
So hopefully that's helpful for someone.
No, that's a really important point because I mean, having the self awareness to know what it is you need to rest from, like it's going to look different person to person. And some people are like, high energy winter people and they want to be outside on snowboarding or they want to do their like outdoor activities and stuff. It's totally different depending on like the stage of your life and what you happen to be involved in. So I think that's great because it doesn't look like hibernation for everyone, but there is
Right.
the concept of rest and putting things aside.
So what are some practices, Aimee?
Yeah, well, winter is this I've been thinking about it, especially since last winter we were in the tropics and didn't feel the cold. Having felt the cold for the first time in over a year, it made me remember that, wow, winter is such a vulnerable time. Like, this is where we remember that we die and that we're vulnerable and that, like, how much we need shelter and food and light
Mm,
and warmth. So it's, I mean, not only a time to retreat, but to honor the connections that we have with people that we need, not in a frenzied party way, unless that's your thing, but in a way that just like honors and acknowledges that fact. I have this really good book by Mayana Welty. It's called The Healing Wheel. And I love what she says about winter in it. She says, winter will remind you that you are small. Winter requires trust in time, in darkness, in ourselves, and others. Winter will let you hear your heartbeat. So that
mm. I love
stillness
that.
and like the opportunity to learn more about yourself and hear your heartbeat, as she says, that's really the gift of winter. So, some practices that she suggested in this book were just simply meditating and contemplating your relationship to the qualities of winter, which would be darkness, coldness, stillness. Like, how do you feel about those? How are those in your life? How do they show up for you? And then sitting in silence every day, touching trees. I really liked it. She talks about
Oh,
noticing how nature feels and behaves in the winter and like be out in it, touch the tree. But observing nature in general, there's every life lesson can be learned, you know. Buddha
oh,
sat
at
by
the
the
risk of
river.
sounding like a total hippie, I have to say, I mean, having done my shamanic training last year,
Uh-huh.
I just had never really, I mean, I'd always loved nature, but I'd never, I feel like my plants are like my little people that I take care of in my house now. I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, I feel like and the trees especially, like you learn so much from, like you said, just touching the bark of a tree, like being connected to the energy of a tree, contemplating what that tree, what the energy of the tree is putting out, even if that is too woo woo for you, then which I don't think for our listeners. I think our listeners are probably like, yes, yes, exactly.
Yeah.
But but I'm assuming that if that is not you, then even just contemplating the relationship of how we share oxygen and carbon dioxide together, how we breathe out and what they breathe in, and they breathe out
Hmm.
what we breathe in, and how important that, and how interconnected we are cyclically with those trees, with just the breath of our lives. uh, so much to learn from that. I love that, Aimee.
Totally unrelated, but that just reminded me when you talk about breathing. Did you know that mushrooms breathe oxygen? Mushrooms.
Really?
They're like little humans. Anyways, I found that out and I thought it was super weird for some reason because I always thought of
Yeah,
them more
that's
like a plant,
interesting.
but they're not. Anyways, other practices that we can do, light candles. That's like the easiest, most obvious thing that most people do anyway, because it's like this happy little flame of light and warmth, and it smells nice if you have a nice smelling one.
Hmm.
You can like do meditations with candles, like staring at a candle and just focusing on the flame. That's kind of nice to do. I haven't done that in a while, but another thing she suggested was to just sit down on the ground and connect to the earth. So you ground down by sending your energy out your root chakra, which is at the base of your spine, either as like visualize it like roots or a cord or a ribbon or however you want to do that. And just sit with the earth, kind of letting it cradle you and think of the warmth of the earth's core. And this is actually kind of like the guided meditation that I did, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago. It's on our YouTube. And the imagery in it is not very wintry, but it is this concept of connecting to the heartbeat of the earth. So you guys can check
Mm,
that out.
I love that. I was talking to a friend of mine this week too, and she was talking about setting boundaries during the winter and how there's so
Hmm.
many social events to go to, right? I mean, like if you've got kids, and there's definitely choir concerts and there's end of the school year, this or that. And then if you don't have kids, there's just holiday parties and work parties and things. And I loved what she said. She's like, I was talking to my friend and she said, if it's not an F yes, and I'm paraphrasing obviously,
Mhm.
then it's a no.
Yeah.
Like in terms of where you want to go.
I think that's a great rule.
Don't you think in general? I mean, not that, there are times where we do things that we're not like super excited to do because we want to show up for someone we love. But, maybe it is that you want to go to a party because you're going to see someone and they're going to fill you up. But really gauge where you're at emotionally and where your energy is at. And if you feel spent and there's just like one more holiday party to go to, it's like, girl, stay home. You
It's
know what I
okay.
mean?
Yeah.
I'm giving you permission. Sometimes
Yes.
we need that. I know I do. Yes. So
You had a little crisis this holiday season
oh my gosh.
about
I know.
boundaries.
I hesitate even telling it on the air, but yeah. So I won't say the name of the actual thing, but we did a fundraiser in our house, and it was like a Christmas tour. So we had all these people who I didn't really know. They were just basically strangers to me, in my home for a week, decorating it for Christmas so they could, and then they sold tickets, and it was like a charity thing. And I'd never been on a tour like that. And I thought, oh, it sounds like a fun, cool thing. And I was feeling generous like 6 months before we committed. And I was like,
Yeah.
that sounds great. And then as the time got closer, my husband's job got really busy and we were doing more of this and I was writing. I was like, this is going to be really hard. And in the meantime, I had really been making all this big effort to really connect to my own menstrual cycle, to connect to the cycles of the seasons. And so I think when you actually make the intention to be like, I want to live in alignment with the seasons. Well, then guess what? Like, then you start to actually do it. And then the downside of that is that you become really aware when you are not in alignment, when
Mhm.
something is like, so I had all these people in my space moving things around. Then I had 700 people walk through my house, which was, oh my gosh, like I was literally having a panic attack off site thinking about it, just having all the energy. But what it did for me even more than that was this residual Christmas faith crisis. I realized, with all of the Christmas stuff in my house and all of my own Christmas stuff as I was setting things up, for people that are joining us for the first time, we were both members of the Mormon church. I guess we technically still are. We probably need to remove our records at some point. But we haven't been in many years, and I don't really identify as Mormon anymore. But I feel like my relationship to Christmas in general, this was the first year where I was just like, do I even want all this stuff around? Like, what do I even believe? Like, how does this, what, for the sake of tradition and fun, and my kids are still little and all of that.
Mhm.
And then thinking about what it is that I'm into now, which is much more eclectically spiritual. And I really wanted to have a room where we had this, where we kind of celebrated different religions in the world. And, that didn't happen. And I just thought it was a really interesting experience early in the season to feel so exposed and to feel so confronted with just like our relationship to the holidays and what that means in terms of a faith crisis. So I thought it would be somewhat relevant to share that. I mean, it ended up, it's over, it's fine. It was great. We did it for charity. That's great. But it was one of those things for me personally that I thought, wow, this is really a bigger trigger than I thought it would be, because it brought up all of these other things going on. And so
Yeah.
that's kind of the,
No, yeah,
the
that would
story.
be really confronting on like a lot of levels, I would imagine.
Do you feel that way at all, Aimee, when it comes to, celebrating Christmas, the Christmas holiday, having been Christian and now, I mean, I don't know, like, what are we? I don't even know. Like, I don't really have an issue with Christ, and
No.
I think Christmas as a holiday is fun, but I've also been very, very aware of how much we impose Christmas on other people now that I'm not
Right.
all in on Christmas. I'm like, man, what about the Jews? What about the pagans? What about the Hindus? What about the Buddhists? Like, we're just like, this holiday is just, it's like a month-long holiday, you know?
Yeah. I mean, more than anything else besides like the religious undertones, which I mean, I don't have a problem with the whole peace on earth, goodwill toward men, like
Well,
whatever.
totally right.
However, we can promote that, do it. But I'm more like
Right.
disturbed by the commercialism, like the just it's just basically every holiday it goes this way nowadays. Valentine's Day, every holiday has this like this drive to consume. Yeah, it's the consumerism that gets me more than anything else. And like the
Mm.
pressure. I like giving gifts to people, but I'm also fine not doing it if I'm like not in the mood or like don't have it doesn't make sense. I'm not in that part of the world. But I
It
don't know.
just feels so much more like, wouldn't you like to? I mean, like I'd love to have like where you just want to give a gift because it's not Christmas time, like because you want to give a gift, or
Right. Well, and
I
nowadays
don't
I
know.
feel like it was more fun when I was little and it was like a surprise and I would like spend time like doing a surprise for my parents or whatever and it was like this fun thing. But
Mhm.
nowadays it's like, oh, okay, what do you want for Christmas? I want this.
I'm ordering it on
Nothing's
Amazon. Here it
nothing's a
is. Yes.
surprise. Like it's not I don't know. I feel like it could be better. I feel like no energy to deal with it or even really think about it.
No,
But
no, I get it though. I'm like, shouldn't we just all get together and snuggle? That sounds like a great
yeah,
Christmas activity. Let's just all snuggle up under a blanket and drink some hot chocolate.
snuggle
Yes.
party. Yeah, I love I mean, I
Yeah.
love Christmas in general. Like I like the lights and Christmas trees and whatever. And I think cuz I've always liked December cuz it's my birthday. And so it's like December is the month of everything awesome, which for me
Yeah.
that was my birthday. It was snowboarding in the mountains. It was like then like Christmas and like January was the super depressing month when it was all over. I was like, ah, gotta wait another 12 months for the best month of the year. But
Yes.
I don't know. It is interesting how things shift and change, like especially the religious part too, because I do find myself hearing Christmas songs now and not appreciating them nearly as much as I used to.
Right. I
Yeah.
just feel like I'm thinking about all the other people who have to live through the holiday season that don't even celebrate it. And I think that's an interesting, like, I never even thought of that ever before, where I was like, wow, maybe we need to just think about other people in that way. I mean, obviously, it's a great time to serve. And I'm with you, like, anything that's going to, like, call people into a more charitable mindset is great. But
I mean,
there's that little shadow piece.
yeah, like I don't think it's such a
Mhm.
problem like, oh, this is Christmas and we can't do it because there's people who don't celebrate it here. Like that does I mean,
No,
every
right.
every part of the world has their festivities and their different like focal points. But yeah, I
Yeah.
mean,
So let's talk about Chinese medicine.
yeah. So so the qualities of winter according to Chinese medicine, I was reading that the water element is the main element of this season and that is correlate or that's associated with the kidneys,
Hmm.
which so this is like the time to store versus expend energy, which is qi in this system. This is the most yin time of the year in the yin yang system. This would be considered yin. And I was reading that like exercise should be liquid and soft at this time. Like do your flowy yoga, do your tai chi or qigong. Don't try to be sweating a lot though. Like it should be this fluid, like water, basically. And of course, resting and seeking warmth. And I found some info. A woman named Emma Seti posted that the sense organ associated with winter is the ears. So contemplating your relationship to sound and silence, like everything's quieter, so your ears kind of perk up in the wintertime. I thought
Hmm.
that was interesting. And then the body part of this time is bones. So doing things to strengthen your bones, like slow weight bearing exercises. And then she mentioned bone broth as well, is prescribed often under this system to warm the body.
I've noticed that just my husband and I went out to lunch the other day, and what I wanted was mashed potatoes and turkey and like warm veggies. And what I ordered was a salad because I was like, oh, I've been eating so much garbage. And I was
No.
so unsatisfied. I was like, get that salad away from me. I don't need any of that. Give me the warm food.
No, it's not time for
Yes.
that. Yeah, warm, mushy
No.
food is what it's
Yes.
about this time of year. The other thing that I read was that fear is like the major emotion that can crop up, and it is very horrible for the kidneys. Apparently, it injures the kidneys if you are fearful. So, doing things that nourish and support your feelings of safety and peace basically de-stressing, because stress is like rooted in fear. It's like this prolonged low grade fear response. And I think that becomes so amplified during the holidays. So retreat when you need to. I thought that was interesting, just like the whole fear thing, because it's not something that I think about a lot. Like stress is something that we can relate to. Fear is like the underlying thing, though.
So what about Ayurveda?
In the Ayurvedic system, we talked a little bit about this in our fall episode. It is still Vata season, which in that system is correlated with the wind and space element. So that season lasts till about February, but it has less movement. It starts to slow down as things freeze because there becomes more of this like heavy earth element from the next season, which is called Kapha. So the tips under the Ayurvedic system is to eat warming cooked food, not raw food like your salad, and
Right.
warm drinks, and also fermented foods. Things you can do is oil massage for yourself, like slathering on some oil before or after you're bathing. You can also put oil in your nostrils. Like if you have your cold, you can like rub it around. I'm going to try it today. I should have done it before so I could report. But use
That's
like,
interesting.
yeah, because you get so dried out with the heaters and your runny nose and whatever else. So yeah, you can actually rub, like give your little self a little nostril massage.
Lovely.
And then I thought this was interesting to think about is notice what you're wearing. Like, are you wearing just black, 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 or nothing that is warm toned? Red is kind of like this holiday color, but I don't see a lot of people wearing yellows or oranges. So like, if you're a really cold person, maybe try wearing some fiery colors. I don't know.
Hmm, I like that. And don't forget to sleep and a lot and
Yes.
uh, and move or dance, especially if you are prone to seasonal depression.
Right.
So,
Right.
do you want to go ahead and talk about what our challenges to our listeners this holiday season?
Yes. Well, we would like to encourage you to design your own little ritual to honor the winter and do it on the winter solstice, which is this Friday, again, the 21st of December. So, some of the ideas that we had, you could do it something like this. You could take a bath like the Japanese, scent it with orange and ginger or whatever smell you like, light a candle, before you get in, make yourself some hot tea, some hot healing beverage. I really like to drink chai herbal tea this time of year because it's just delicious.
Yes. I remember
Um,
having that market spice, whatever that citrus spice thing was
oh, the one from
when I
Olympia?
came to visit you in Washington.
Yeah.
Yes. That one I think of in the winter as like being the ultimate
Oh, yeah, that one is so
like
good.
lemon spice tea. So good.
Yeah, so you can pour your tea, get in the bath, and just kind of soak in stillness while your tea cools. And close your eyes and notice your breathing. Like do yourself a little meditation in the tub. And then when you're ready, you can get out and cuddle up with a blanket and a notebook and write down these journal prompts. You can start out with saying, "It is winter and I feel blank." So, what do you feel about the fact that it's winter right now? Other ones are, "It is dark and I feel blank. It is cold and I feel blank. It's quiet and I feel blank. It is still and I feel blank." So, this whole little journal exercise is a way to explore your relationship to these winter qualities. And you'll be able to see what aspects might need more attention from you based on your response to them. And then after you do this, you can make a list of ways that you can warm and honor yourself in all of your aspects. So, physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, etc. And just write down whatever comes to mind. This is where your intuition kicks in, and just like whatever you think of, write down, and you may come up with some interesting ideas.
I'm always surprised when I actually do that work,
Hmm.
what nuggets come up of like what nuggets of wisdom. And so for our listeners, we will definitely be posting this journal prompt on our Instagram. So if you are listening to this in your car and you're driving and you're like, oh, that sounds like a good thing, we will post this as a post on our Instagram account, which is Intentionists with an S,
Mhm.
and on our Facebook page. So you'll be able to find that and reference it. Even if you're listening to this years ahead, you can look back to the December 2018 posts and find it in our Instagram stories or
Yes.
Instagram posts. And we also would encourage you guys to go to our website, at intentionists.com,
Mhm.
and sign up for our newsletter. We will not spam you. Right now, we haven't even sent out a newsletter
Right.
yet,
We
but
promise
we
we
will
will.
be doing it soon.
Yes.
So we're thinking a monthly newsletter that will basically just give you guys our most recent posts, some little ideas for self-care, things that are meaningful to us. We'll make sure that they provide value and are uplifting in their nature. So head over
Yes.
to our account and sign up that way.
Please
Anything else,
do.
Aimee?
No, I just wanted to tell people, like, for me, I don't know about you, Hillary, but when I get an assignment or a suggestion, like a journal prompt from someone, I am so I just I have this reaction where it's like, no, I don't want to do that. That's so dumb. And I just have this really weird negative reaction to things like this. And it's because they're always so helpful. It's like myself saying, like, I don't want to do that work because I know stuff's gonna come up. I don't want to deal with it. But, like, it really is so helpful, like, when I actually do these things, like little journal prompts or, like, mirror work, like, "Oh, say this thing in the mirror." I'm always like, "That's dumb, and I hate it, and I don't wanna do it." But then I do it, I'm like, "Wow, this is, like, a major life breakthrough." So, give it an actual try. Like, it sounds simple and strange, but I think that these types of things are really, really helpful to building awareness about yourself. And so, anyways, I thought I'd just put that out there. If you are having the same reaction that I have to journal prompts, like, I'm with you, but I, you should
I
still do
think
it.
if you don't, and if writing isn't your thing,
Mhm.
then take the bath. Cause I actually really like getting a formula instruction because it
Mhm.
makes me feel like, oh, this is what I'm going to do tonight. I can do it intuitively, but it makes me feel like, oh, I'm following this protocol and it's in a container that I can access. So, do your bath, and you can even if you just think it, if you don't want to get down and actually write it, but just
Right.
think about, like, contemplate even just one of those. It is winter and I feel it is dark and I feel wet. It is
Mhm.
cold and I feel, all those things. I love that, Aimee. Thank you so much for creating those prompts. And you guys, we hope you have the greatest winter of your life right now.
Yes. Before we part, we'd like to say thanks for listening, and we hope you'll connect with us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. We would love to hear from you and appreciate all feedback, shares, and likes.
To learn more and subscribe to our newsletter, visit Intentionists.com. And no matter where you are or what you're creating, we send you love and invite you to breathe and begin.
See you next week.